15 US places that break the rules. Most places follow the same unwritten formula. Cities have sidewalks, beaches have sand, parks have trees, and roads take people exactly where they expect to go. But across the United States, there are places that seem to ignore every one of those expectations. Lakes that look tropical but are freezing cold. Forests where the trees grow in ways that should not even be possible. Towns where giant rocks balance as if gravity simply forgot about them. The strange part is that none of these places are science fiction. They are real, they can be visited, and millions of people drive past them every year without realizing just how unusual they really are. Some were created by nature over millions of years, while others exist because of geological events so rare that scientists still study them today. By the end of this video, it will become clear that the United States hides places capable of making almost every travel destination look ordinary. Some appear impossible in photographs, some completely change depending on the season, and one of them even looks like another planet. If this is the kind of content that keeps curiosity alive, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let everyone know in the comments which place deserves the #1 spot. Hamilton Pool Preserve, Texas. Looking at Hamilton Pool for the first time feels almost confusing, because the scene does not match what most people imagine when they think of Central Texas. Instead of endless dry landscapes, a collapsed limestone grotto created a natural swimming hole with emerald water sitting beneath a massive rock overhang, where a waterfall pours into the pool almost year-round. The cave ceiling partially collapsed thousands of years ago, leaving behind one of the most beautiful geological formations in the country. Depending on recent rainfall, the waterfall can change from a gentle curtain of water into a powerful cascade that completely transforms the atmosphere. The surrounding cliffs are covered with moss, vines, and ancient ferns that make the entire place resemble a forgotten jungle rather than a location only a short drive from Austin. The area also tells a much larger story about how landscapes are formed. What looks like a simple swimming spot is actually the result of thousands of years of geological processes. Every layer of limestone surrounding the pool represents a piece of history, showing how water slowly carved and transformed the land over enormous periods of time. For visitors, the experience is less about simply seeing a beautiful location and more about realizing how unusual nature can become when given enough time. A place that started as underground rock eventually became one of Texas's most recognizable natural attractions. There is also something strangely satisfying about finding a place like this in an area where people would never expect it. It feels like discovering a secret hidden in plain sight. You can spend hours driving through Texas landscapes that seem familiar and then suddenly arrive somewhere that looks completely different from everything around it. Every visit feels different because the lighting constantly changes throughout the day, creating reflections that almost make the water glow. It is one of those rare places where photos somehow still fail to capture how impressive it actually looks when standing there in person. Mono Lake, California. At first glance, Mono Lake looks peaceful, but after a closer look, the landscape begins to feel almost alien. Massive limestone towers, known as tufa formations, rise directly out of the water, like ancient ruins from another civilization. These formations were created over thousands of years as freshwater springs reacted with the lake's highly alkaline water, producing shapes that exist almost nowhere else on Earth. The lake itself has no outlet, meaning minerals have accumulated for countless centuries, making the water several times saltier than the ocean. Surprisingly, despite these extreme conditions, millions of tiny brine shrimp and countless migratory birds depend on this ecosystem every year. During sunrise and sunset, the reflection across the lake creates colors that constantly shift between blue, pink, orange, and silver, making photographers return again and again in search of the perfect shot. What makes Mono Lake truly special is the way it challenges expectations. People often imagine California as beaches, Hollywood, and large cities, but this corner of the state feels like another planet entirely. There are no skyscrapers, no crowded streets, and no signs of a modern world nearby. Instead, there is an ancient lake that has been quietly changing for generations. The landscape also creates a powerful reminder that beauty does not always come in familiar forms. Sometimes the most fascinating places are not green forests or tropical beaches. Sometimes they are places where the environment seems harsh, unusual, and almost impossible, yet still manages to create something extraordinary. Mono Lake is proof that nature does not need to follow a standard design. It creates shapes, colors, and environments that can surprise even the people who have spent their lives studying the planet. It is difficult to believe that one of North America's oldest lakes has been quietly existing for hundreds of thousands of years while remaining one of the country's least understood natural wonders. Great Sand Dunes National Park, Colorado. Most people imagine sand dunes stretching endlessly across deserts, but Colorado completely changes that expectation. Rising against the dramatic backdrop of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, these dunes reach heights of more than 700 feet, making them the tallest dunes in North America. Standing at the base, the scale feels almost impossible to judge because every step upward sinks into soft sand, making the climb far more demanding than it appears. Snow-covered mountains surrounding golden dunes create a contrast that looks almost edited, yet it is completely natural. During spring, melting snow feeds Medano Creek, creating a temporary beach right beside the dunes where families relax while surrounded by what looks like a miniature desert. As the wind constantly reshapes the landscape, no visit is exactly the same because the dunes slowly change their appearance every single day. The formation of the dunes is a story of time, wind, and geography working together. Sand from surrounding mountains was carried into the valley over thousands of years. Certain wind patterns trapped the sand in place, allowing the dunes to slowly grow into the enormous formations visitors see today. During spring and early summer, melting snow creates another unexpected feature, Medano Creek. The water flows along the base of the dunes, creating a temporary beach-like environment where people can relax while surrounded by one of the most unusual landscapes in America. It is one of the few places where mountains, beaches, deserts, forests, and grasslands somehow exist within the same national park. Thor's Well, Oregon. The Oregon coastline already feels dramatic, but Thor's Well takes that feeling to another level. From a distance, it appears as though the Pacific Ocean is being swallowed by an enormous hole carved directly into the rocks. Every incoming wave crashes into the opening before exploding upward in spectacular bursts of water that can reach impressive heights depending on the tide. Scientists explain the phenomenon through underwater sea caves and natural erosion, but seeing it happen in real life still feels difficult to understand. During high tide, the entire area becomes incredibly dynamic, as water rushes through hidden channels beneath the surface, before bursting back out with incredible force. Different weather conditions completely change the mood of the landscape, with sunny skies creating brilliant blue reflections, while storms transform the coastline into something that looks straight out of a fantasy film. The atmosphere changes completely depending on the weather. On a bright day, the blue water and clear sky create a beautiful contrast against the dark rocks. During cloudy conditions, the coastline becomes more dramatic, with waves appearing stronger and the entire area taking on a more mysterious appearance. One of the reasons Thor's Well became famous is because photographs often make it look even more impossible. Images of water pouring into the opening can create the impression that the ocean is falling into a hidden underground world. But standing there in person gives a different feeling because you can see the constant movement and power behind the formation. Every wave produces a different display, making it almost impossible to stop watching because no two moments ever unfold exactly the same way. Devil's Kettle, Minnesota. Few places create more curiosity than Devil's Kettle because it presents a mystery that fascinated visitors for decades. The Brule River suddenly splits into two waterfalls, with one continuing downstream exactly as expected, while the other disappears into a massive hole in the rock. For many years, nobody knew where that water actually went. Countless theories appeared, ranging from hidden underground rivers stretching for miles to enormous secret cave systems beneath Minnesota. Modern scientific studies eventually traced the missing water back into the river, but the unusual geological structure still creates one of the most fascinating waterfalls anywhere in the country. Dense forests surrounding the falls make the location feel isolated and untouched, adding even more mystery to an already remarkable landscape. The waterfall also demonstrates how powerful water can be over long periods of time. Slowly moving water can carve through solid rock, reshape landscapes, and create formations that seem impossible when viewed from a single moment. Unlike many famous attractions that rely on size or dramatic scenery, Devil's Kettle became famous because of a question. It attracted attention not because it was the tallest waterfall or the largest natural feature, but because it made people wonder. Watching thousands of gallons of water vanish into what looks like a bottomless opening remains one of those experiences that immediately sparks curiosity, no matter how many times the explanation has been heard. Fly Geyser, Nevada. Nevada is already famous for unusual landscapes, yet Fly Geyser somehow manages to stand apart from everything around it. Bright red, green, yellow, and orange mineral deposits cover the towering formations, creating colors so vibrant that many first-time visitors assume the photographs have been heavily edited. Unlike famous geysers created entirely by nature, this one accidentally formed after a geothermal well was drilled decades ago, allowing mineral-rich water to continuously flow and slowly build the spectacular structure seen today. Heat-loving algae contribute to the constantly changing colors, meaning the appearance subtly evolves throughout the year. Steam rising from the warm water adds another layer to the surreal scenery, especially during colder mornings when the entire landscape appears almost dreamlike. It is a perfect example of how unexpected combinations can create something extraordinary. A human action that was never intended to create a landmark eventually became the reason one of America's most unusual landscapes exists today. Fly Geyser also shows that nature is not always about untouched wilderness. Sometimes the relationship between humans and the environment creates surprising results. The Earth has a way of adapting, transforming, and creating new landscapes from unexpected circumstances. What makes the experience even more remarkable is the complete contrast between the colorful geyser and the otherwise empty Nevada desert, stretching endlessly in every direction. It feels less like visiting another state and more like stepping onto the surface of another planet. The Wave, Arizona. There are rock formations, and then there is the wave. Millions of years of wind, rain, and shifting sand carved smooth sandstone into flowing curves that resemble frozen ocean waves made entirely of stone. Every surface displays layers of orange, red, gold, and cream-colored stripes, twisting together with astonishing precision. Depending on where the sunlight falls, entirely new patterns seem to appear, making photographers spend hours exploring only a relatively small area. Because access is carefully limited through a permit system, the landscape remains remarkably untouched compared to many other famous attractions. Every direction reveals another formation shaped into spirals, ridges, and sweeping curves that seem almost impossible for nature to create without human involvement. Walking through the wave feels like exploring a natural artwork. Every direction reveals another curve, another pattern, and another viewpoint that looks completely different from the last. A small change in position can transform the entire landscape. The reason it feels so special is because it does not look like a typical desert. There are no endless flat areas of sand or ordinary rocky hills. Instead, the ground itself appears to move, almost as if a massive ocean wave was frozen at the exact moment before it crashed. Walking through this landscape completely changes the sense of scale, because even though the area is not enormous, every angle creates the feeling of exploring an endless natural sculpture gallery created over countless ages. Mendenhall Ice Caves, Alaska. Few experiences compare to standing beneath solid blue ice while sunlight filters through frozen walls overhead. Hidden beneath the Mendenhall Glacier, these ice caves constantly change shape as the glacier slowly moves and melts, meaning no two visits are ever exactly alike. The vibrant blue color comes from densely compressed ice, absorbing every color of light except blue, creating an effect that appears almost artificial, despite being entirely natural. Tiny streams flow beneath the glacier, while smooth frozen ceilings curve overhead in shapes sculpted entirely by moving water. Every crack, tunnel, and chamber tells the story of a glacier that has existed for thousands of years while continuously reshaping itself. Another fascinating detail is how quiet everything becomes beneath the ice. Outside, the surrounding landscape is filled with rivers, forests, birds, and distant waterfalls, but inside the glacier, the atmosphere changes completely. Sounds become softer, footsteps echo gently across the frozen floor, and the occasional drip of melting water becomes surprisingly noticeable. It creates a strange sense of calm that is difficult to find anywhere else. The silence makes the experience feel almost unreal, as though time itself slows down inside the glacier. Looking closely at the walls reveals another remarkable feature. Layers of compressed snow, trapped air, tiny stones, and ancient ice create natural patterns that resemble artwork. What appears to be a simple block of ice is actually a detailed record of Earth's natural history preserved inside one frozen landscape. The experience feels strangely peaceful because every sound becomes softer beneath the ice, creating an atmosphere unlike almost anywhere else in North America. It is one of those places where nature quietly demonstrates just how extraordinary ordinary physical processes can become over enough time. Badlands National Park, South Dakota. From a distance, the Badlands resemble the ruins of an ancient civilization, but every ridge, cliff, and layered formation was shaped entirely by erosion over millions of years. The landscape is filled with sharp peaks, deep canyons, colorful rock bands, and fossil beds containing some of the richest prehistoric discoveries in North America. Every layer represents a different chapter in Earth's history, preserving evidence of environments that existed long before humans ever appeared. As sunlight moves across the formations, shadows completely transform the landscape throughout the day, making familiar viewpoints appear entirely different only a few hours later. Unlike smooth mountains, shaped by gradual weathering, the Badlands are filled with jagged peaks, narrow ridges, steep ravines, and dramatic rock spires. Erosion continues to reshape these formations every year as wind, rain, snow, and changing temperatures slowly wear away the soft sedimentary rock. Scientists estimate that parts of the Badlands lose small amounts of material annually, meaning the landscape is constantly evolving even though those changes happen too slowly for the human eye to notice during a single visit. One of the park's greatest treasures lies hidden beneath the surface. The Badlands contain one of the richest fossil deposits anywhere in the world. Wildlife including bison, bighorn sheep, prairie dogs, and golden eagles adds even more life to an environment that initially appears almost empty. Standing among these formations creates a rare feeling of witnessing geological history exposed layer by layer in every direction. Crater Lake, Oregon. Nothing prepares visitors for the color of Crater Lake. The water is so intensely blue that it often appears digitally enhanced, yet its remarkable clarity comes from the fact that the lake is almost entirely fed by rain and snow rather than muddy rivers. Formed after the collapse of a massive volcano nearly 8,000 years ago, the lake fills one of the deepest volcanic calderas in the world. Wizard Island rises dramatically from the center, creating one of the most recognizable landscapes anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. During calm weather, reflections become so perfect that the surrounding cliffs seem to continue beneath the water. Winter transforms the area once again as heavy snowfall blankets the rim, creating an entirely different atmosphere from the vibrant summer scenery. Rising dramatically from the middle of the lake is Wizard Island, a volcanic cinder cone that formed after the original collapse of Mount Mazama. From above, the island appears almost perfectly placed, creating a scene that looks carefully designed rather than naturally formed. Its dark volcanic slopes contrast beautifully against the brilliant blue water, giving the lake an appearance unlike any other in North America. Looking across these towering walls makes it difficult to imagine the force required to create such an enormous depression. Every cliff, ridge, and exposed rock layer serves as a reminder that this peaceful lake was born from one of the region's most destructive natural events. Every season presents a completely new perspective, making repeat visits feel surprisingly fresh despite standing in exactly the same location. Antelope Canyon, Arizona. Antelope Canyon proves that even light itself can become part of the landscape. Narrow sandstone passageways twist through the desert, their smooth walls sculpted by flash floods over countless centuries into flowing shapes unlike anything found above ground. Sunlight enters through narrow openings overhead, producing famous beams of light that seem almost solid as they cut through the canyon's dusty air. The colors constantly shift between deep orange, purple, gold, and crimson, depending on the position of the sun, making every photograph appear dramatically different, even when taken only minutes apart. Walking through the canyon feels almost like moving inside a living sculpture because every corner reveals entirely new textures and patterns. The walls themselves are what immediately capture everyone's attention. Instead of sharp edges and rough surfaces, they flow like liquid, bending and curving with remarkable smoothness. Looking upward reveals narrow openings where sunlight enters the canyon in thin beams, creating dramatic columns of light that appear almost solid as they pass through tiny particles of dust suspended in the air. These famous light beams have become one of the canyon's most recognizable features, drawing photographers from around the world hoping to capture the perfect moment. The experience changes continuously as light moves overhead, turning the canyon into one of the most visually dynamic places in the United States. Glass Beach, California. Finding a beach covered with colorful sea glass sounds almost impossible until arriving at Glass Beach. Decades ago, discarded glass ended up along this coastline, and over many years the Pacific Ocean slowly transformed broken pieces into smooth, polished gems scattered across the shore. Instead of sharp edges, every fragment became rounded by constant waves, creating a shoreline that sparkles with shades of green, blue, amber, and clear crystal. What began as an environmental mistake eventually evolved into one of the country's most recognizable examples of nature reshaping human history. Every wave reveals slightly different colors, while the sunlight causes thousands of tiny glass pieces to shimmer simultaneously. Walking along the shoreline reveals an endless variety of colors and textures. Some pieces are perfectly frosted after decades beneath the waves, while others still carry tiny hints of their original bottles. Under bright sunlight, the entire beach begins to shimmer as the polished glass reflects light in every direction. During sunrise and sunset, the colors become even richer, creating a scene that changes depending on the angle of the light. Time and the ocean erased their original purpose, leaving behind something completely different. Instead of waste, they became part of a landscape admired by visitors from around the world. Few places demonstrate the incredible ability of natural forces to reshape materials as beautifully as this shoreline does. The beach demonstrates how time and natural forces can completely transform something ordinary into something unexpectedly beautiful without losing the story behind its origin. Bonneville Salt Flats, Utah. The Bonneville Salt Flats stretch so perfectly flat that the horizon almost disappears. After seasonal rainwater evaporates, it leaves behind an enormous white surface that reflects the sky so perfectly it becomes difficult to tell where the ground ends and the clouds begin. Covering more than 30,000 acres, the flats have become famous worldwide for land speed records because of their remarkably smooth surface. During certain times of the year, shallow water creates giant mirror-like reflections that make vehicles and people appear to float across the landscape. Sunrise and sunset completely transform the scenery, filling the horizon with endless reflections that seem to stretch forever. From a distance, the flats seem almost featureless, but spending time there reveals subtle details that make the landscape fascinating. The salt forms intricate patterns across the ground, creating natural geometric designs that stretch for miles. During dry conditions, the surface becomes bright white under the sunlight, making it appear almost like freshly fallen snow despite the intense desert surroundings. After seasonal rainfall, a thin layer of water covers sections of the flats, turning the landscape into one of the largest natural mirrors in North America. Mountains, clouds, and sunsets reflect perfectly across the surface, creating photographs that seem almost impossible to believe are real. It is one of those rare places where simplicity becomes the entire attraction because there are almost no distractions, only an endless white canvas extending in every direction. Hocking Hills State Park, Ohio. Ohio rarely appears on lists of extraordinary landscapes, which makes Hocking Hills even more surprising. Hidden among dense forests are towering cliffs, deep gorges, waterfalls, caves, and narrow rock corridors carved through ancient sandstone over millions of years. Every trail reveals another dramatic formation, from enormous recessed caves with towering ceilings, to waterfalls flowing gently into quiet pools, surrounded by moss-covered rocks. During autumn, colorful leaves transform the entire region into one of the most beautiful forest landscapes in the eastern United States, while spring fills the valleys with fresh greenery and flowing streams. Perhaps the most remarkable quality of Hocking Hills is how quickly the outside world seems to disappear. Even though towns and highways are not far away, the dense forest, winding trails, and towering cliffs create an atmosphere that feels wonderfully isolated. The sounds of traffic are replaced by birds singing in the trees, flowing streams echoing through narrow valleys, and leaves gently moving with the wind. It becomes easy to lose track of time while exploring the landscape because every section invites visitors to slow down and notice details that are often overlooked elsewhere. The combination of rock formations and dense woodland creates a peaceful atmosphere that feels far removed from nearby cities. Every season changes the character of the park without taking away any of the features that make it unforgettable. Valley of Fire State Park, Nevada. The Valley of Fire looks exactly like its name suggests. Brilliant red sandstone formations glow under the desert sun, creating landscapes so dramatic that they have appeared in countless films, documentaries, and travel photography collections. These rocks were formed more than 150 million years ago, from ancient sand dunes that gradually hardened into stone before being sculpted by wind and weather into arches, domes, and wave-like formations. Every turn along the road reveals another remarkable shape, making it feel as though the landscape was designed rather than naturally created. As daylight changes, the rocks shift between shades of orange, crimson, and deep red, giving the impression that the entire valley is constantly changing color. One of the park's most fascinating features is the incredible detail hidden within the sandstone itself. Close inspection reveals swirling patterns, layered colors, and delicate textures created by ancient winds long before humans existed. In several areas, visitors can even find prehistoric petroglyphs carved into the rocks thousands of years ago, providing a remarkable connection between the landscape and the people who once called this desert home. These ancient carvings quietly remind everyone that remarkable places have attracted human attention for thousands of years. It is a destination that repeatedly surprises visitors because every viewpoint reveals another formation unlike the last, ending the journey with one final reminder that some of the most unbelievable places in America have been quietly waiting there all along. If even one of these places completely changed the way the United States is viewed, then this video accomplished its goal. Every destination on this list proves that some of the world's most extraordinary landscapes exist in places many people never expect. Share in the comments which location deserves a spot on the travel bucket list first, and if there is another unbelievable place that should appear in a future video. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so the next adventure is ready the moment it is uploaded.